Welcome to Gifted Insights. I'm here today with Darren Grice. Darren is Deputy CEO of Link for Life, which is the arts, culture, heritage and leisure charity working with across the borough of Rochdale. Welcome, Darren. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Excellent. So Darren and I have worked together since about 2017 when I started supporting Link for Life on the plans for Dippy on Tour Northwest and helping with the fundraising. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, and I'll be amazed if you don't, but if you don't, Dippy on Tour is Dippy the Diplodocus skeleton from the Natural History Museum, going on tour around the country, different sectors of the company, and delighting audiences with lots of cultural and heritage and science activity. So Darren put together a fantastic team for Dippy, including wonderful exhibition planners who designed and created a spectacularly interactive, engaging exhibition. Little did they know that the pandemic would hit and no one is allowed to touch anyone or anything for several months. Now, this story does have a happy ending, which is what we're here to talk about, a happy story in kind of the cultural arts heritage world. But let's set the scene, Darren. So it's February 2020. It's a very wet and windy night in Rochdale, and we've just had a spectacular opening of Dippy. Tell us what happened next.
Well, first of all, Amy, I'm very impressed that you're still remembering your elevator pitch about Dippy on tour. It's something that you got used to doing in the lead up to the opening in that wet February, which it absolutely bucketed it down in that launch. And I think we were the only one of the 8 locations in the UK, although Norwich hasn't gone yet. So this could be changing. But I think we're the only one that had a clog procession between one venue and the other as part of the Dippy opening. And then I think we also had a bit of a pantomime song from our mayor. So it's a very unique opening. It was very specific to Rochdale, I think.
It was indeed.
And we were the only site to have 2 locations. So our museum wasn't big enough to host Dippy as the exhibit. So we had an exhibition in the museum and we had Dippy in number 1 Riverside, which is the council's new contact centre and customer service centre. So that's why we had a clog parade between the 2. I think Dippy is probably the biggest cultural event that we've hosted in Rochdale for some time, both in terms of scale of Dippy, but also in terms of the ambition of what we wanted to achieve. It was a little bit like Paris, Milan, Rome, Rochdale on the tour of Dippy going around. I think we were the unusual suspect in terms of the itinerary. And we put together, with your help, a really ambitious program, and you helped us get the Heritage Lottery Fund, which meant that we could make it, we wanted it to be really transformational. So Rochdale, for those that don't know, is an area that over-indexes on cultural deprivation and also actually on quite a lot of the deprivation indices. So we had a lot to play for in Rochdale, the opportunity to bring something as inspirational and as inspiring as Dippy. And let's face it, everyone who sees Dippy remembers when they were a kid at the Natural History Museum the first time they saw Dippy. So bringing that to somewhere like Rochdale and making that accessible to all the local communities had a huge benefit for us, and it was a really big moment for the town and for the borough. And we had a big education plan sat beneath it that we wanted to really inspire the next generation of young people around science. And we wanted everyone to come into Rochdale and experience the town centre. It's been going through a lot of regeneration. It's surprising for many people who haven't been there for years to see the work that's been happening around the beautiful town hall and the opening up of the whole heritage centre. So we'd built this trail between the 2 venues as well, which was great. So anyone who came would get to go from one venue to another. And I'm pleased to say people came. So we opened Dippy and we had 115,000 visitors in the first 5 weeks. Now, to put that into context, we had a Dippy wrapped tram, thanks to some of the sponsors that you helped us get. So we had Transport for Greater Manchester Metrolink, we had Taylor Wimpey, and we also Northwest, and we also had Manchester Airport Group. But part of the TFGM sponsorship was a Dippy tram that was wrapped in Dippy livery. And from that kind of first day, it turned up with all the Dippy livery on it, the doors opened and people just bundled out to come and see Dippy.
And just in context, as you say, that's a huge number of visitors for Rochdale. How does that compare to kind of normal annual visitors at Touchstones, for example?
Okay, so we would normally have at Touchstones, which is a relatively small museum, we would normally have about 45,000 visitors in a year. We had 4,500 visitors by 1 p.m. So on the first day. So we had 10% of our annual visitors in a morning. I actually went over to the museum. Some of the front of house team, one of them was moved to tears. They were so proud of the
Oh,
amount of positive feedback and the amount of people coming to the museum, which has not had it has a changing exhibition, but the fixed museum has been there for some time, so people are
yeah.
quite used to seeing it, and that's often a challenge for museums to kind of challenge people to come back and see it again. And so this influx of people, it tested it. I mean, it broke our lift in the first few days, and all sorts of things went wrong, but they were all brilliant things. They were all things that actually meant that we were being, really well used. You only had to look out onto the street, and there was an army of people carrying Dippy teddy bears, because obviously we had the Dippy shop, and they're really popular.
Yeah.
Armies of people with Dippy stickers and teddy bears walking from one building to the other. And the brilliant thing was that in those first few weeks, all the feedback from the local businesses, the business improvement district, and everybody was about the upturn in footfall, in the shops, in the cafes, in the retail centre, within the town. And so there's this massive optimism when we opened it, and
Yeah.
we had 32,000 school children booked. So we had everything to play for from February going into March.
And I mean, that just shows the impact that cultural and heritage activity can have on a town or a city, doesn't it? The fact that the local businesses, were seeing that upturn in trade purely because of Dippy just demonstrates how important it is.
Absolutely, and all the way through since March, when we had to pause Dippy on tour, and right the way through, whenever I'm on any calls with local businesses, or I see that the council or any of our partners, and I should say we worked in partnership with Rochdale Borough Council to
Yeah.
produce this event. Any of those calls, the first thing that people ask is Dippy still here? And everyone wanted to know whether Dippy was going to be extended, because Dippy was visiting us until June. So we had, I think, the second longest run in the eight location tour. But obviously we only got 5 weeks into that run before we had to make the decision to pause Dippy and put Dippy in isolation in Rochdale. And we had a huge number of requests about how was Dippy, was he staying, what was going to be happening with Dippy, and we reassured everyone that we were letting him talk to Stan the T-Rex over in Manchester Museum as well, so he wasn't completely on his own. But yeah, it was a huge thing for the businesses, and we had a new shopping centre that was moving towards opening as well, so there was a real kind of timing about having these two things together. So we were keen to reopen as soon as possible. However, it wasn't going to be without challenge.
No, but there was some innovation, wasn't there? Some creative thinking and some fantastic people coming together to make it happen. So tell us about how you reinvented the exhibition to make it COVID secure.
Well, I should first of all say that my team did all the reinventing, so it's great that I get to tell you about it, but it's not all my idea. So I should definitely say it's the team that did this. And we're very lucky within Touchstones that I have a multidisciplinary team. So I have theatre practitioners, I have people from contemporary arts background, people from museum background, and from community engagement background. So we had, as you said in your introduction, spent a lot of time with the exhibition designers saying that we wanted this exhibition to be absolutely interactive. We wanted families and young people to be able to pull, push, and prod everything in the museum so that it moved as far away from the standard look at the object as possible, which is the antithesis of infection control. So as we were going into the lockdown, and then during the period of lockdown, once we started to move towards a period where we knew that we would be able to think about reopening, we had to think really differently about the museum, because we had a lot of different materials as well. So we had wood, we had plastic, we had foam, we had all sorts of things. So even the whole idea of sanitizing, you would need so many different types of sanitizer and so many staff to be able to keep the interactives between individuals. It was going to be quite difficult to do, if not impossible, with the existing exhibition. So the team came up with an idea, and the idea was that actually, if instead of everybody touching the interactives, perhaps we could have fewer people who would touch and demonstrate the interactives and bring it to life that way. And that's where the theatre expertise came in within the team. And they hatched a cunning plan to audition and create an actors company based in the exhibition, who would, through the process of devising, would go back to the original heritage education learning outcomes from our original National Lottery Heritage Fund bid, look at those learning outcomes, use the exhibition as a giant immersive set, use the interactives and create some costuming around it, and create a storyline, and that people would be invited in and they would process as a promenade performance through the exhibition. All of the social distancing would be built into the narrative, and all of the infection control processes would be built into the narrative so that they were robust and taking place, but maybe not as scary. And one of the key things that the team were really concerned about was that when we reopen, it shouldn't feel like a lesser experience than it was before we closed. It shouldn't feel like it was, a part of an exhibition or less of the exhibition. And actually what's happened is feedback is people like this a lot more than, even more than what we had before. They loved the exhibition. So we now have 5 time traveling scientists based in the museum, and they have created a story where the audience arrives. They are taken into what is effectively a health and safety briefing, but that sort of suddenly the screen goes fuzzy, and really it's actually not a health and safety briefing. There's a message from the future, and time traveling scientists come back and they take you through each of the galleries as they look to understand what are the environmental and all of the conditions around how fossils are made, dinosaurs, how big they were, where they lived, and move you on to a part of the exhibition, which is thinking about humankind's impact on the natural habitat and how we can protect that. It's very immersive. You have to dance, you have to floss, there's poetry in it, and time slime is the hand sanitizer. As you move from one gallery to another, you apply time slime on your hands, which allows you to go up and down in the timeline as you learn the heritage outcomes. It's had a hugely positive feedback from everybody that's been going to it.
Sorry, Darren. That just takes away the edge for children, doesn't it? That time slime element that, they would love that. The thought that they're putting time traveling slime on and actually it's hand sanitizer. So clever.
We've had loads of messages back from parents saying that their children now apply time slime regularly at home. The lovely thing is, obviously we've had to do all the usual things that other people have been thinking about with the social distancing, the markers on the floor, the signage, the spacing, one-way systems, all of that is built into the promenade performance. But having all the spacing on the floor, it's built into the narrative. So in one of them, you're in a game show, so the space that you stand on the floor is your space in the game show. So all of it is it's in there to try and be as unobtrusive as possible and part of the narrative or the experience that you're having, which I think is working really well for people.
And didn't you use local actors and actresses as well in part of the process? So you were kind of giving people who were probably struggling for employment at that time as well a new thing to focus on.
Yeah, and it was really important to the team that was part of the way that we tried to approach the challenge, because like many sectors, it's COVID and the closure of venues has had a massive impact on the creative industries, and particularly actors and theatres. Actually, I mean, we've got 2 live venues as well. They closed their doors in March, and we've yet to be able to put a show on the stage. So for performers, that's been a real challenge. So we were really keen to contract artists early on. So we've got five artists, 4 established actors from Greater Manchester, and they firmly believe, and I don't know whether this is true, but they firmly believe that they were the only and first actors to get a contract from all the way through. So we contracted them in the end of July, and their contract runs till December. So at a period when most theatres were closed, most shows weren't touring, it was very difficult for actors to find any kind of work or imagine what a future might be. We were holding auditions and able to contract 4 actors and 1 emerging actor who is actually resident in the borough. So we've got an emerging young person who has been going through training as an actor, working with our team of 4 established actors, and they were in rehearsals and developing the narrative for about 3-4 weeks before we opened. They've also been able to do another version, which is an early years version, and they've also been, as we've been rolling the program through, they've been adding bits on it. So they've been able to do things on social media, create some fun little things, but they've also been integrating sign language into some of it as well. So there's lots of things. By having an actors company in residence, which is effectively what we've been able to do, we've been able to kind of layer the experience from when we opened and tweak it and develop it as well.
I mean, it's such a brilliant story at this time, you know, when, as we said, cultural organisations are really struggling. Really great story. Have you got any, you know, top tips for colleagues working in arts, culture, heritage? Have you know anything you've really learned over the last 6 months that you'd like to share with people?
I guess it sounds really obvious, but you know, it's the creative industries for a reason, and people are creative. And I think as difficult and challenging and as dire as the situation can seem at points, you know, there's a moment, you know, you're sitting there, you're cancelling pantos, you're cancelling fun. It feels like, you know, but we are creative people, and it's a creative industry, and actually through that creativity, other things start to happen or other opportunities arise. I mean, I'm not sure that we will be able to produce a standard exhibition in the summer holidays, for example. Again, I think what we've now got is a blueprint for how we might start to bring together and bring to life the exhibition program in a different way that really engages families. So we didn't know we would find that. We started off kind of feeling fairly gutted that we'd had this amazing start to Dippy on tour. We'd been working on it for years, and it was suddenly paused, and it felt really a bit hopeless for a while. But actually, the creativity of people coming together has created this blueprint, which I don't think will be the same anymore within the organization itself. The teams are working together in a way that perhaps they didn't need to before. It was a bit more kind of separate, whereas now, you know, who'd have thought that the museum team would be working alongside actors, working alongside this, you know. So I think be creative and remember and do what we do best, which is take a creative approach to it. And there are opportunities there, and there are opportunities out of it. I was coming home the other day, and I saw completely different, but I saw a dance class taking place outside in a little outdoor space near where I live. And I just thought it really heartened me, because I thought so often culture and creativity is sort of hidden. And, you know, and it is, you know, all our venues are closed, and it's a really tough time, but it's never been more visible than it is right now, because stuff's out on the streets, because people have to be creative in different ways. It's online, it's broadcasting in whatever shape or form. I think there's a huge opportunity in there. And I think what we've got to think about is how do we harness that, and how do we take that forward and use that opportunity to be more visible than it's ever been. And I think it means more to people than it's ever meant, because it's an opportunity to come together and reconnect and be social in a safe way. So I do believe there will hopefully be a silver lining in it, but I think we just have to keep being creative.
Yeah, I think when something's taken away, people realise how much it actually does mean to them, and that's definitely what's happened within the, you know, theatre and arts world, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
Listen, Darren, thank you so much. It's been fantastic to hear about the story, and congratulations to the team. As you said, it wasn't, you know, just yourself, it was a whole team of people behind you. You've done an amazing job. I'm so happy for you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.